Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Maida, CEO of Gainsight, and I'm going to do another episode in the series we call Metaphysical Musings, which is all about bringing thought leaders from customer success and product management to help us all get better in the SaaS industry together. Today, I'm super excited to welcome Teresa Torres. Teresa is an author, speaker, and product discovery coach. And actually, you can see her books in the background. We'll learn more about that. And really excited to have a conversation with you, Teresa, today. Teresa helps teams get valuable insights from customer interviews, run effective product experiments, drive product outcomes, all very top of mind right now. She's also the author of Continuous Discovery Habits, which you see back there, a product trio's guide to structured and sustainable approach to continuous discovery. I'm really excited to have this wisdom with us today, and also maybe start with a human introduction. So we always like to start with an icebreaker. So you're in the product world, you work with product people. What's the one product or app you can't live without?
It's funny. I'm going to say Trello, which is kind of boring, but I literally run my life out of Trello. So Trello it is.
We just had an event a couple of days ago. We were talking about how some people are list people and some people aren't. Like, I love checklists.
Yeah.
Even if I finish something already and I forgot to put it on my checklist, I'll put it on my checklist and then check it off right away.
I'm the same.
So I probably am similar to you. Yeah. What our chief people officer said, she hates checklists. And I was like, everyone's personality is a little different.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I might have mentioned, you might have heard that I started my own career in product management eons ago, back in the Stone Ages. And so I have a personal connection to the space. Love to hear what makes you excited about product? What caused you to get into this field?
Yeah. I got introduced to human-centered design really early in my career, actually in college.
Yeah.
I kind of naively thought that's how business worked. And then kind of went out into the internet world and had a rude awakening. And I was like, oh, this is not at all how most people work. I spent a lot of my early stage startups. I saw founders make the same mistakes over and over again. I saw product teams make the same mistakes over and over again. And so about 13, 14 years into that, I realized this isn't a very effective way to have an impact. And so I decided to focus on instead of building products, although I am now building products, to really shift my focus to training product people. And when I say product people, I really mean product managers, designers, software engineers, user researchers, all of the folks who contribute to creating digital products.
Well, it's interesting because I love the term you use, coach, product discovery coach. Maybe tell me a little bit about what those words, I'm sure, were selected very intentionally. Product management training. Why did you choose that terminology?
It's really fun because when I first started, I didn't know a single other coach in the product space. Yeah. And now there are agile coaches and product coaches and product discovery coaches. And so that feels really rewarding. When I first got started, I was not coaching. I was actually just burnt out and needed some income. So I was taking project work for companies because I wasn't ready to take a job. And a lot of what they asked me to do was help with user research. Mm-hmm. And the challenge I had with that is I don't believe user research is a one-time activity. Right. I think it's really a critical business function that needs to happen in-house. And so what I started doing to sort of reconcile my discomfort with what I was being asked to deliver is I just started pitching them. I said, look, I'll do this user research for you, but send some of your product team with me so I can train them how to do it while I do it for you. And that actually worked really well. And that was sort of my foray into coaching. And I, at the time, was in a master's program at Northwestern on learning and organizational change. Oh, cool. And that program has a coaching component. And so that was sort of got introduced to the more traditional business coaching. And I was like, wow, I'm going to merge the things and just make it a thing. And product coaching is going to become a thing. And that was about 7, 8 years ago. Wow. Maybe a little more than that. Actually 9 years ago. Time flies.
Amazing.
And it's just really fun to see that now coaching is an accepted practice in the product space. And I really think it's a very effective way to help people build skill.
Well, it's awesome. It's cool. We launched Gainsight about 9 years ago, so very similar time frame. And I know that personal satisfaction from seeing something that started out as just a small niche area and turned into something real. So I think that's really cool. I also love the term coach because I do think that, if you look at it as a one-time thing, whether it's a UX project or just a one-time training, that's cool, but it's not the same persistent benefit. And I think that that's a good segue because right now, I think I know some of your clients are probably in the software and SaaS world. Right now is a challenging time in tech, right? We all know that. A lot of empathy for the people that have been affected by layoffs and things like that. And even for folks that are not affected, all businesses are trying to like tighten up, trying to, get more durable through the ups and downs. And so we talk a lot about what that means for the customer facing people, the sales and marketing and CS. What about the product people? How do they need to change their strategy? What are you coaching them for given this economy?
Yeah, I think when we're looking at maybe the brink of a downturn, we're definitely seeing layoffs across the industry. Yeah. I saw a report that a lot of the big SaaS companies are starting to report that their customers are pulling back on spend.
Totally. We're seeing that across the board.
Yeah, I think when we're in that space, it's really even more important that product teams focus on discovery. Because what do we get from discovery? We're trying to balance how do we create value for our customer in a way that creates value for the business. And one of the biggest mistakes I've seen teams make, like thankfully now, we were not here 10 years ago, but now I feel like a lot of product teams are customer focused.
Yep.
But they forget to align it with business value. And there's two parts to that. There's your customer's goal and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
And how do you make sure you're creating that value in a way that connects to their business if you're in a B2B space.
Right.
But then there's also value for your own business.
Yeah.
And I think in the boom times, we like to think like, oh, we'll figure out the business model later.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in the lean times, we don't have the luxury of that. And I would argue even in the boom times, we shouldn't be ignoring that.
We shouldn't be doing it. Totally.
Right. So discovery is a great way to help connect those dots of yes, we need to make sure that everything we build has an impact and that it has an impact for both the customer and the business. And we can't forget one or the other.
I can't tell you how much that resonates because I think, let's unpacking both sides of that statement, right? So right now, every end customer is scrutinizing every technology spend, right? And it's like, yeah, sure, we love the product. It's great. It has a nice UI. But what's the real business value that this is driving,
Yeah.
And it doesn't even always matter that your champion loves the product. It's like the CFO is like, why do we need this? If we turned it off tomorrow, what would happen, right? And so I think that's one lens. And I think the other lens is from a CEO perspective, everyone's under cost pressure. What's the ROI of the R&D we're doing, right? How is it going to help our business, right? Is it going to either help us get new customers or retain our customers or drive expansion? And I think a lot of product people, including at Gainsight and other places, don't always have the training and coaching to be able to have those conversations. So I think that's super interesting. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I think the fundamentals of building good products don't change very much, regardless of the economy. They don't change very much, right? We have to understand our business and how we can create value for our business. We have to understand our different customers and the different players in that ecosystem. So if you're B2B, you got a buyer, you got end users. Maybe you have different types of end users. We're now seeing B2B to C products. So now you've got even more complexity there.
Yeah.
Right. And so a product team's job is really to understand that complexity and make sure that in the value chain, you're meeting everybody's needs and that you're building as little as possible to meet those needs. I think that's a piece people miss, right? They think, oh, well, I can just build a lot of stuff and it will meet needs eventually. Well, okay, maybe that worked in boom times, but it was still really wasteful. So now in our lean times, how do we tighten that up and make sure that everything we build is delivering value along the whole value chain?
I love that, as little as possible to deliver the value. And I think it's a good setup to talking about your book a little bit because it's called Continuous Discovery Habits. Maybe you could share a little bit about what inspired you to write the book and also maybe a couple tips or themes that you wrote about in the book.
Yeah. So I've been coaching product teams since 2011, 2013, kind of depending on how you measure it. And, one of the things I saw over and over again is that teams just don't know what to do when. It's pretty easy to get comfortable with the different discovery tactics, interviewing customers, A/B testing, prototyping, et cetera. But it's really hard to know what to do when. And so throughout my coaching practice, I started to develop a framework for how do we make those decisions? How do we do it as a team? How do we make sure we're aligned? How do we make sure we're doing the right activities at the right time? And around 2016, 2017, I started to find some practices that were really changing the way teams worked for the better. The way that I measured my coaching outcomes was behavior change. How do I get teams doing this on a more consistent basis? Hence the continuous and hence the habits part of the title. And so really around that time period, I started to realize it's time to get this in more people's hands. And so I wanted to write a book. The problem with books is they're the epitome of a waterfall product.
Oh, you 100%. Release them and we've read 3 of them back there, so I know what you mean.
Yeah, you release them and you hope they resonate, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't do that. What I did was I started developing online courses
as
a way to test the content in the book.
Smart. Yeah.
And so from 2017 till about 2020, I iterated on a variety of online courses. I codified my coaching curriculum. And once the content started to speak for itself and stand on its own, I decided it was time to write the book.
That's awesome. So maybe give us a couple nuggets or themes that we would learn more about in the book.
Yeah. So the book starts with starting with an outcome. So why it's important to be outcome focused and not just output driven. Mm-hmm. Once that's in place, it looks at, I introduced this visual called an opportunity solution tree. That's the visual that's going to help you figure out what to do when. It breaks discovery down into 2 different key activities. The first is interviewing to discover the opportunity space. So it's a little bit of jargon. Opportunities just represent unmet customer needs, pain points, and desires. How do we create value for our customers? And then the second big activity in the book is assumption testing. So how do we discover the solutions that will address those opportunities in a way that will drive that outcome? And that sounds really simple and like logical, but what we're doing with it is really powerful. We're aligning customer value with business value. And then the book is chock full of other exercises you can do with your teams, experience mapping, opportunity mapping, uncovering the assumptions you need to test. We get into effective ideation. A lot of business books are really high level, like they're pitching a concept. My goal is I really wanted to create a hands-on guide, like something that gets dog-eared because it's sitting on your desk that you're referencing day to day. And thankfully, the feedback I'm getting is a lot of teams are using it that way. And so it's a lot of fun to just my goal is to kind of create this handbook of like, how do we discover the right stuff to build?
Oh, that's amazing. And having done books, I have empathy for the work involved, but also the kind of gratitude for you doing this, because I think it really does have an impact on people. As you were talking, one of the things that resonated for me was, an individual PM, this could help them get better. Also, potentially, I'd imagine drive consistency across PMs inside a company or maybe between PM and designer. Are you seeing that too, of like, we're all going to adopt a common framework for how to do continuous discovery?
Definitely. It provides a common language. It gives people a process. Like discovery is messy, right?
Totally.
And so I don't preach like a rigid process. I feel like each team needs to find the methods that work for them, but it gives you kind of an outline, like a recipe that you can then adopt and change and mix and match for your own team. And one thing I'm going to highlight, it's not just for product managers, right? Like I really propose this format of a product trio,
right? I want
doing discovery together,
right? Product trio. Who's in the product trio?
Yeah, so ideally, it's a mix of cross-functional roles. So at most companies, it's a product manager, a designer, and a software engineer.
Yeah.
The idea is how do we cross-functionally collaborate when we're deciding what to build? And so it's not a rigid concept. If you have a data analyst on your team because you're building a data-heavy product, they're on your trio too, and maybe now it's a quad, right? But it's this idea of like, let's leverage everybody's expertise when we're trying to decide what to build.
I love that. It resonates so much, again, as not just for our customers, but even for Gainsight ourselves, right? So another thing that resonated, we saw that you were on the Product Science podcast, and you had a great quote, which is most product teams don't spend enough time with their customers, which is, I think, totally true and obvious, but still so true. Most businesses are in making business first decisions instead of customer first decisions, right? And sometimes they're not even thinking about either stakeholder. They're just shipping stuff, which is what you were talking about before. And so as you think about like how the product trio works with the business people in the company, meaning the sales, customer success, support, as well as maybe the customer, how do they want to involve the customer and the customer facing people in this continuous discovery process?
Yeah, so the first thing I'm going to say is I hear from people literally every single day, and they say, how do I convince my company to work this way? So I want to tackle that as part of this.
Love that.
I tell people, don't wait for your organization to change.
Yeah.
Like you literally will end your career with so much regret because nothing will have changed in your organizations. And there's a lot of reasons for why organizational change just doesn't happen on the timescale we want.
Totally agree.
So the key thing here is, as an individual contributor, no matter what your organizational context is, you can do some of these things. And this is actually why I wrote the book as a series of habits to help people think about, like, you can adopt one habit at a time. And if it's hard in your context, start with the easier habits, right? And the easier ones for you will depend on your context. So like if you're in a really quant-focused context, start with assumption testing. If you're in a really qualitative-focused context, start with interviewing. If nobody in your organization is doing this, you're probably going to have to make relationships with some of those customer-facing folks, right? So some people think about it as like, oh, I have to get permission to talk to my customer. I'm going to go to the head of sales. Don't do that, right? Like now we're in that org change world that's slow and hard.
Totally.
Go find a friend on the sales team.
Yeah.
Right? Like don't tackle the big, hard problem. Find a smaller version of that problem. So a smaller version of that problem is like, I probably know somebody on my sales team that I can go be a buddy with, go have lunch with them, talk to them about their customers, and then find a customer that you could just sit in on one of the sales calls.
Totally.
Just be a fly on the wall. Like that can be step one.
You can also, by the way, record, a lot of companies record their calls. They can even listen to the recordings as well.
Yeah. So, and then once that sales rep is comfortable with you being in the room, you can say, hey, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Right? Like we tend to start with the end goal, which is really hard to get to. Like all salespeople are open to product people from all teams being in their meetings and asking questions, right? Don't start there. Start with like the teeny tiny problem of, I know Jim on the sales team. I'm going to go see if I can sit in Jim's meeting with company A.
That's interesting. I really like that. It's almost like the analogy to waterfall versus agile. It's like the small steps and that resonates because I think any change in a company, anytime somebody in Gainsight comes to me and is like, we need to have a cross-functional meeting and organizationally align. I'm like, is there a small experiment you could run to start? Something you could just do tomorrow, right? Like I love that. And so I got a master's. Where does that go? Where does that go from there?
Yeah, I was just going to say I got a master's in organizational change, and my takeaway was avoid it at all costs.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So now you do that small experiment. Where does it go from there?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like most people are afraid of the unknown.
Yep.
So when you go to your VP of sales and you say, hey, the product team needs to talk to your customers. That's how they think about it. They own the customer relationship. That's unknown. That's scary. You're going to get a no every time.
Totally.
But if you start with one sales rep and you just be a fly on the wall, and then eventually you get to the point where they let you ask a question, and then eventually they get to the point where they're letting you meet with your customer on their own.
Yeah.
If as you do those different steps, you make it really visible, the benefit of talking to those customers, how you're going to take their feedback and iterate on your product, guess what's going to happen? The sales rep that sits next to Jim is going to ask, hey, will you talk to my customers? I want their feedback to influence the product, right? And then once you have multiple data points of this, of it actually working and sales reps that will vouch for it, now you go to your VP of sales with data and advocates and champions. And it's a lot easier to start to make that organizational change. So we like to think that organizational change is going to happen top down. It rarely does. It almost always happens through this like grassroots, bottom up, start small, iterate your way there.
I couldn't agree more. My gosh, that's like just so relevant. And obviously you've studied that field, so you know it really well. So I love that. This has been great. I know we're up on time. I just want to say I've learned so much, and just being totally honest, I'm going to go read your book, and actually love to have more Gainsight product people read this and get aligned on it. It seems super practical. I also love the idea of approaching this from a coaching perspective. So I'm hoping everyone that watched got a lot of value out of this too, and some practical ways that you can build a more business-oriented and customer-oriented approach to the way you do product development as well. Teresa, if folks want to learn more about you, where should they go?
Yeah, Nick, so first of all, thanks so much for having me. For people that want to learn more, you can go to producttalk.org. I've got about 200 blog articles about product discovery. And then the book is Continuous Discovery Habits. It should be available in bookstores around the world in ebook form, paperback, and audio form.
Audio, that's mine. I'm going to go listen to it on 2X. So that's my weekend routine. So
I narrated it myself.
I listen,
so you get to listen to me in your ear.
Teresa, thank you so much. It was awesome talking to you. Enjoy the winter in Bend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick.